Last week's FISA memo generated a storm of controversy as Chairman Devin Nunez implied the FBI used faulty information to acquire a warrant to look into President Trump. However, Democrats say the memo does not contain the full story and have gotten their own version of the memo through both houses of Congress, where it faces presidential approval. Talking Points analyst Jack Watson breaks down the specifics for us. Jack?
Thanks a lot, Mike and Josh. The Nunez Memo, or FISA Memo as some are calling it, has dominated political spheres for the past week or so. But what does the memo actually say, and is what the memo says true? Well, the California Republican congressman and his staff drafted this memo right here. It's not that long. It's actually only about 3.5 pages long, which alleges that the FBI used biased information to obtain a FISA warrant to look into a Trump 2016 campaign advisor and the FBI's investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. That campaign staffer is Carter Page, and the FBI says that much of the evidence that the FBI based on for its application for a FISA warrant is based on the Steele dossier, and that spy, of course, was Christopher Steele, the former MI6 officer who was hired to investigate some of Trump's ties to the Russians during the election. Now, what Democrats have said about the issue here, Adam Schiff, who is one of the top Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee, has called the memo misleading, and he says the popularization of the memo is a distraction to the larger issue of Russian interference in the U.S. presidential election and Special Counsel Bob Mueller's investigation into it. They have a rebuttal to the GOP memo, which is 10 pages long, and the deadline for that to be released is Friday.
Now, Conor, President Trump has said that the Nunez memo totally vindicates him from the Russia probe. How much truth is there to that? Does it vindicate him?
In short, no, it doesn't, and there's several reasons to that. Number one, although the crux of the memo is that it's the controversy behind the Steele dossier that really kicked off this investigation, it also concedes that what really ignited the FBI investigation was Papadopoulos speaking to that Australian diplomat under the influence of alcohol back in June. That's what ignited this. And number two, even if we can say for certain, let's just say that it is true that the FBI was able to confuse the judge or trick the judge into giving them this FISA application, not telling them that the Clinton campaign was behind the dossier. It's still, the FISA court still renewed 3 different warrants to investigate Page, and the way that works is they have to be able to still bring more presidents to be able to continue under that warrant, and they investigated him for a year.
And when we talk about continuing that sort of exploration, Jack, that Democratic memo that you mentioned, what can we expect from that?
Well, it's basically going to be a response to what the Republicans said in this memo right here. What I would expect that to say is basically along the same lines of what the Democrats have been saying about this memo for the past week or so. It's a distraction to the larger issue of the Russia investigation, and it's essentially just a big waste of time when considering that Bob Mueller's trying to conduct an investigation. That's, in my mind, what they would say.
Now, Conor, we have the GOP memo, we have the Democratic memo. They're at odds. The Democratic memo rebuts the other one. So we have these dueling memos. Where exactly can we find the truth in between both of these?
The truth is in the FISA application from the FBI itself. Really, the only way for us to see who's telling the truth, what's false, what's factual, is to see the application itself. Because right now, it's turning into a political spin. We've seen, certain things that are definitely backing, Republican beliefs in the Nunez memo, and I'm sure we'll see the same in the Democratic memo if or when it's released. So to really get down to the bottom of it, we have to see the direct source.
And in terms of getting down to the bottom of it, the FBI and the White House have been feuding over this for a long period of time, but this public behavior doesn't seem to have a precedent, does it really?
Not really, and it just shows, it's a testament to the uniqueness of this administration and how openly these two organizations can be infighting, because Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, has basically said, as the legislative branch, we're supposed to be a check on the executive branch to make sure they're doing what's right. And in the Republicans' eyes, in the Republicans who drafted this memo's eyes, that's not what the executive branch is doing. That's not what the FBI is doing.
Certainly a unique position that both parties find themselves in, and certainly something we're going to be keeping our eye on. Both of you, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.